Blog Talk Radio.
Hello out there, everybody. It is Tuesday, June 26, 2012. I am David Demzowski, founder of The Financial Bin and host of FB Radio. Now, before I introduce you to our guest today, let me share a few quick notes. First off, Landlord Intervention is finally here. Financial Bin released Landlord Intervention, How to Acquire and Manage Rental Property last week. The book is by author Joseph L. Brown, who has been in the real estate rental business for over 20 years. It is the second installment in our intervention book series, Entrepreneur Intervention being the first. Brown gives you a fantastic step-by-step how-to guide for you to begin your own career as a landlord. You can pick up your copy, paperback copy right now, on Amazon and our CreateSpace e-store for just $14.99. Head over to financialbin.com, click on Landlord Intervention for more information and to purchase your copy. We'll let you know when the ebook is available. Now let me introduce you to our guest. His name is Mike Michalowicz. Mike is the founder and president of Obsidian Launch and author of The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. And he's here to tell us about his newest book, The Pumpkin Plan. Mike, welcome to FB Radio.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, David. It's a thrill to be here.
Oh, no problem at all. It's a pleasure to have you on. So, Mike, we're just going to jump right in. The first question I have for you is, can you give the listeners a brief description of what you did prior to starting Obsidian Launch and releasing TPE?
Yeah. So kind of how I got started was actually in a drunken stupor, basically. I was working at a local computer store and after I graduated college and just couldn't take it anymore. And I went out for drinks with another guy that worked there. And David, liquid courage is the miracle worker. After quite a few beers, I said, I'm going to start my own business. And I actually left a kind of a slurring message quitting my current job for my boss, and the next morning I regretted making that decision. But he wouldn't hire me back, so I kind of stumbled my way in, which I don't recommend that for other people necessarily.
Sure.
But I don't know if I would have ever pulled the trigger. So started a business in computers. I was very fortunate through a lot of hard effort, through a lot of failures. It ultimately started to grow. I sold it to private equity about 8 years after I started it. Then I had a second company in computer crime investigation. That was kind of the big potato. I had that one for 2.5 years and sold it to a Fortune 500, and then moved on to write The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, and now The Pumpkin Plan.
So, Mike, were you okay? The drunken stupor story, I love it, but I mean, did you maybe always feel you had that entrepreneurial desire in you? Honestly enough, I would say no. I didn't have an inkling for it. No, and my parents, I remember them, after I went to college, my father said, Mike, the day you graduate, get that one corporate job, because that's what he had, and live through it for your life. And that's why I really believed it. The problem was that I couldn't get the job. I interviewed and no one would hire me. So I settled for this computer job, this computer store, Gotcha.
And it became frustrating. I wanted the way out. I wanted something different. I didn't envision entrepreneurship, but when I finally started doing it, I was like, oh my God, I love this. I love it.
So Mike, for those who may not know, could you tell us a little bit about Obsidian Launch and how it all works?
Yeah, and it's kind of shifted over time. So I started Obsidian Launch as my third company with the intention of being an angel investor. So I brought on, over the years, about 15 companies, and I've come now to call myself the death investor because I collapsed maybe 14 of them. I've one left that's doing well, and the other ones have either faded away or gone out of business. And I recognize that's clearly not my talent as an investor. So I just would throw money at anything. It's just stupid. But what's come out of it is I started writing the books, and a lot of people started approaching me with requesting consulting, how to kind of reinvigorate an existing business. And that I have a knack for. So I started another startup called Prevendus Group, and that's what we're doing. So I write my books, Toilet Paper Entrepreneur and The Pumpkin Plan, and now have this new startup called Prevendus Group that's replacing Obsidian Launch.
Gotcha. Great. So can you tell us a little bit about The Pumpkin Plan? I believe it is out, correct?
Yeah, well, The Pumpkin Plan, we're listening in early. The Pumpkin Plan comes out July 5th, so it's still, it's still a week and a few days away. But,
gotcha.
so the Pumpkin Plan what I did, David, was when I was growing my first company, I really struggled on the early years. It was very fear-driven. I was just terrified of failing. I needed a check, I needed a paycheck of some degree to pay for myself, and also I had a young family, my wife and child. So it was very fear-driven. And I hired my first business coach, and there was this epiphany thing he said. He goes, most of the things you're doing right, and it's true for almost all entrepreneurs. It's really just a 5% change that needs to happen. It's a small few things, but if you make that change, all the differences occur. Well, at the same time, a few days later, I was flipping through the newspaper, and I saw this guy that had grown a giant pumpkin. And what caught my eye in there, in the first sentence, he goes, I'm just like any ordinary pumpkin farmer. I just do 5% of the stuff differently. And I was like, oh my God, that was my aha moment. I studied pumpkin farming, believe it or not, for about a year, and I discovered that pumpkin farmers that grow these colossal pumpkins change a few things, and it's very uncanny, but it applies exactly and directly to business. If we change these same few things, our companies start responding with explosive growth. So I applied it in my business. My business started taking off. My second business, I did it from the get-go. It just hit it. I'm applying it to my books, actually, the same method, and now I'm consulting companies to do the same process.
So what's your goal with the pumpkin plan, Mike?
So, my dream is to touch 1 million entrepreneurs. I mean, that's my big vision, is that hopefully not 1 million entrepreneurs will hear of it, or at least be inspired by it, or hear or borrow the book from somebody. I don't care how the word gets to them, but I want entrepreneurs to recognize that we're in a tough economy right now, and it's not the government or the world, the governments of the world that are going to fix it. It is the entrepreneur, and we have to perform at a level like we've never performed at before. And I'll tell you one thing, it is impossible, David, for us to work harder. I don't know a single person that can work harder. And the thing is, we don't need to. We just need to work differently. We need to work smarter. And so I hope people start learning this process by hook or by crook. I don't care if they buy the book. I love that. But if they borrow the concepts, if they read it online, just to try building their businesses in a whole new, different way so that they can see bigger results and, in a grandiose scheme, change the economy around for all of us.
Well, Mike, maybe expanding on that idea of the 5% change that entrepreneurs can make. What is the biggest mistake, let's say, startup entrepreneurs make, and what can they do to resolve it or even prevent it?
Yeah, so the biggest mistake that startup entrepreneurs get into, David, is the do-sell process. What the do-sell process is that we sell some work to a client, we get excited we got it, and now all our attention goes on to doing the work for that client. But while we're doing that, our attention's off selling. When we finish a project, we go back and we're like, oh my God, I got no freaking clients. So then our attention goes on selling and not doing. Once we get another client, then we jump back to doing, and our sales keep on going up a little bit and dropping back down. So we need to break out of this trap of sell, do, sell, do. And the key here is systemization. When we do something for a client, we need to spend the extra time, and it does take extra time, but to develop a system while doing it so that the next go-around we can give it to other people or possibly other things to get the same result. That way, stage 2 of an entrepreneur is mastering the selling process, adhering to selling, having systems doing, and then get systems to sell, and now the entrepreneur can step away and be kind of this master puppet, kind of the Wizard of Oz, pulling the strings and so forth, while other people and other things execute the doing systems and the selling systems.
So Mike, what about you? Let's take it and focus on you a little bit here. What are some of the biggest mistakes maybe you made? Well, you mentioned being an investor too. Maybe as an entrepreneur and an investor, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you made, and how'd you learn from them?
Yeah, so tons of mistakes. So some of the mistakes are doing stuff that I really wasn't passionate about, but I saw easy money opportunities. So when I got into computer networks, I enjoy technology as a hobby, but I don't eat, sleep, and drink technology. I can hang with the great ones, but I cannot hang with the absolute best of them. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs mistake that they say, I can do all these things. But can do doesn't translate into I can do it better than anyone else. So I made the mistake of going into certain industries where it wasn't my absolute passion. The problem with that is then over time I get drained, and I was like, I'm exhausted of doing this thing. what saved me in those circumstances was to find a piece of that business where I was truly passionate about it. So the biggest mistake I made, and I see other entrepreneurs do this too, is going where the trend is. Social media is hot now. Every mother and their mother's mother is like a social media specialist. If that's not real passion, if that's not who you are, don't freaking do it, because the people that do love it and they eat and sleep and drink this stuff, they're going to eat us up. They're going to destroy us. So we all need, and I've learned this for myself too, is go where I'm passionate. That's what failed me as an investor too. I tried investing in companies because I thought it was cool and exciting, but really I don't eat, sleep, and drink investing. I don't do any of the analytical stuff, and that killed me. And I lost a boatload of money just being stupid because I, quote unquote, can do things. The answer is ultimately not what can you do, what can you do at a level that no one else can do it. That's where you need to perform.
Mike, what does it mean to be a TPE, or I guess maybe in the Pumpkin Plan's case, to be a 5%er?
Yeah, all right. Well, so yeah, and they're a little bit distinct. So a TPE, the concept, it stands for Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. It's the ultimate bootstrapper. And it's so funny. I just got back into my house. I'm working from home today to call in with you, David. And I came back from Philly. I'm in the New York area to meet with one of the persons that read my first. He read my book about 4 years ago. He's one of the first guys that called me and said, "I read Toilet Paper Entrepreneur," and he liked it. And we were talking. And he said, "My dream is to start a restaurant." Well, he started one 3 years ago. He invited me down to his restaurant. It's called Bryn and Danes in the Philadelphia area. It is exploding. It's explodingly successful. I was down there. The place was packed. And what I loved about meeting with him, I was just so excited for him, was he represents the ultimate TPE. And what it is means that looking outside the box for every opportunity to not only spend less money, but to do things that bring in a lot more revenue. One example was all his tables were on top of whiskey barrels. I was like, wow, this set you tremendously. Like a whiskey, they were beautiful. He goes, no. He goes, I called Jim Beam, I guess that's whiskey, and he goes, I told him I'm starting a new restaurant and that I wanted to use their whiskey barrels. And they said, after a little negotiation, just as long as you pay shipping, which was $200 for 10 of them, they sent a little truck over. He got 10 incredible tables for $200. The other thing, and this is what blew my mind, his facility was gorgeous. I said, how'd you afford this? He's like, this was supposed to be Starbucks, but when Starbucks was building their buildings, they decided about a year ago, I think they said they're going to stop building new franchise locations. He goes, this one was just completed when they announced it. Because I called them that same day and said, I'm looking to lease a space. He got it for a song. It's a beautiful song. And David, you wouldn't believe this place. It looks like a multi-million-dollar chain restaurant. It's one location. He's crushing it there, and his overhead is practically nothing. That's what PE is. And then getting on to the 5%, the pumpkin plan is once we have a business that's established and running, meaning we have some degree of confidence that if we just keep working hard, it's going to generate revenue, then we need to sit back and we need to evaluate our business and determine of all the things we're doing, what is the 5% of the things we do that bring the most benefit? Who are the 5% top clients that are bringing in the most revenue? 5% of products or services that we offer that bring in the most opportunity? Who's the 5% of our staff? Maybe we have 2 or 3 employees. Who's that one person besides myself that is the best person? Then I ask, how do I copy more of them? How do I clone that best employee? How do I find more people like them? How do I clone my best clients? Because could you imagine your number one client, if you had 100 of them, I guarantee everyone listening to this call right now would have a multi-million-dollar business if they could just clone their top client. So we need to focus on the top 5% and then do everything to amplify and grow that.
Mike, after the interview, I'd love to send you an email and get more information about that restaurant. I'm actually in the Newtown area, about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia, so I'd love to be able to promote that and maybe even have the guy on and talk a little bit about it. So that'd be great. I appreciate that. Next question I have for you is, who mentored you when you first started? They say, I guess it's one of those things that, you learn from someone who's been there. So who mentored Mike Michalowicz?
So he's in Horsham, so just in case that's near your area, that's the part of Philly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, the Brennan Danes, it's called. You got to go. So my first mentor, and he's been with me ever since. His name was Frank Minitola, and he came in. He's the one who taught me this 5% rule. And it was I got to share a story because it was hysterical. I go to a chamber meeting in my local town. I've had my business for 3 years. I'm doing only $250,000 in revenue, which by the way, I thought that would be huge, but I was still taking home $0. So I was, that's still struggling for me. So I'm like, I need to get someone that can help me. I meet this guy. I hire him. He comes in. He'd grown an $80 million company. So I was like, he's got to know something. He comes in. He interviews me and my 3 employees, and he asks everyone to leave, and I'm there by myself, David, with him. And he looks at me. He goes, his first words, he goes, "You don't want to be that guy." And I'm like, what? That guy? Like, you don't want to be that guy that retires, sits in that rusty lawn chair with drool dripping down your face, regretting the life you lived. And I'm like, you're a business coach? Like, what kind of freak is this? He goes, no, he goes, I can predict your future. And this was really what drove it home. He goes, I can predict the future for you, Mike, or for any entrepreneur. He goes, where you are today is a direct result of the last 5 years of your actions. So everything you've done to this point has brought you to today. And he goes, I can see from this interview you're continuing those actions. So I know with absolute surety 5 years from today you'll be in the same position. And 5 years from that, the same position until you retire and drool's running down your face. And that kind of hit home with me, is that if I continued the behavior of work harder, and not getting progress, nothing was going to change going forward. So Frank was my first mentor, and he's the one who then told me, you've got to make these small few changes to see the big end results.
Wow. So he was the one that really keyed you on that 5%. So what are maybe some of the things that you tweaked to get yourself over that hump?
First thing, it was interesting. The first thing I tweaked was change, and Frank actually did it in that moment when he told me about this. The kind of the old guy regretting his life, socks pulled up to his knees, drool rolling down my face. That really hit home. And I asked Frank many years later, I said, why did you do that? Because it scared me. And he goes, that's exactly what I wanted. He goes, the biggest thing is to recognize most entrepreneurs will never change because change is fearful. All the what ifs again. What if I try this and it fails? What if I lose more money? What if? He goes, the only way he's ever found to change an entrepreneur's behavior is to make them more scared of their current life than the alternative of trying something new. So he goes, my job in that first meeting was to scare you so bad, Mike, about where you were headed that you were willing to try the change. So that was the first tweak, was to really become, as crazy as it sounds, terrified of what I was doing enough to change. The second thing I did that Frank taught me, and as part of the pumpkin plan, was I started firing clients. And that sounds crazy too. But what I did, and what I think every entrepreneur should do, is I evaluated all my clients up to that point. I didn't have many. I had like 30 clients. But 1 or 2 of them were spending the real money with me, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year. And many of them, maybe 10 of them, were spending like basically nothing, $1,000 or less, $500. And interestingly, it's those small clients that spend very little money that are the biggest complainers. They always need attention. They're the squeaky wheels. So Frank had me do an exercise, which he made me calculate my hourly wage. So I'd look at a client that spent $500 with me, and then I'd figure out how many hours I spent servicing them. And some of them I was spending 100 hours, like a ridiculous amount of time. I was literally less money servicing that client, $5 an hour, than I could have if I was working a McDonald's job.
I was going to say, yeah.
The 2 top clients, they spent $10,000 with me, and I spent 30 hours with them. Well, wow. That was now we're talking $100 an hour, $400 an hour. And Frank said, Mike, you got to fire those lowest clients. You got to get rid of them. He goes, you want to do something really great? Give them to your competition. Let them be distracted by them. What happens is, first of all, you actually start becoming more profitable because many of us are losing money on our worst clients. So just by firing them, serve more money. We actually make more money just by not doing that work. Literally, if we got no other work for the rest of our lives, we still make more money because we don't have people that we're losing money on. But secondly, it frees up lots of time to focus on the best clients, grow those best clients, get more work from them, and find their clones out there in the world and start duplicating them.
Mike, gun to your head, what is one piece of advice, just one, that you would offer to the Gen Y entrepreneur out there trying to start something?
Yeah, so go all in. It sounds crazy, right? Go all in. This is why it's an important piece of advice. A lot of people go in half-assed, but plan B, plan C, plan D, and they only do things partially. If you go and do something partially, you'll have a competitor that's going in full-time on that. They're going to win. The analogy of this, by the way, is Texas Hold'em. I'm playing tomorrow night. I play once a month with my buddies. We play tournament style, and it's freaking awesome. And what I figured out, the only way there's winners and losers is when someone goes all in. Because until that happens, it's just chips moving around. Small bets here, small bets there. Chips move around. Some accumulate some lose some. But when someone makes an all-in bet, that is their big statement saying, I'm doing it, and either they win a huge hand or they lose. But the only way that game will ever end is when ultimately there's an all-in bet. Now, the nice thing about entrepreneurship is you can determine what the best all-in bet is for you, something you're passionate about, something where there's customer demand, something that you can scale, you can have other people doing it for you. When you can combine those elements, when you have it figured out, put everything into it, you probably will win. But even if you lose, there's always another season. You can go for it again. But if you don't go all in, you're playing just to get on first base, you're never going to score.
Mike, I really appreciate it. This has been fantastic. Last thing I have for you, where can people pick up a copy of the Pumpkin Plan and get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. You can get the Pumpkin Plan at your local bookstore or on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles. And if you want to check out what I'm doing, just try your best spelling of Mike Michalowicz on Google. You can't figure that out. Just type it and it'll find me.
All right, fantastic. We'll make sure to put it up there in Financial Event for anyone who can't quite spell that, what is that, Polish name? That's what it looks like.
Exactly.
All right, Mike, I really appreciate you joining us, and you have a great week.
You, David. Take care.
All right, take care of yourself. Bye. All right, everyone out there, that was Mike Michalowicz, and if you can't see it on financialbin.com right now, it is Michalowicz. Hopefully you got all that. Now make sure to check him out at MikeMichalowicz.com, toiletpaperentrepreneur.com, and ObsidianLaunch.com. We'll make sure to post all those on financialbin.com as well. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank Mike for taking the time out of his busy schedule to take about 15, 20 minutes for us here. And make sure to check out financialbin.com for the latest on personal finance and entrepreneurial advice for Gen Y. And don't forget to pick up your copies of Landlord Intervention and Entrepreneur Intervention and the Pumpkin Plan as well. Till next time, I am David Domzowski. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.